So I'm going to give my thoughts on the Ben Whittaker situation. So Ben Shalom, his promoter, came out today in a little bit of a vague interview. He said that a lot of it did sound like excuses. He said that Ben wasn't looking like himself from the first round, that he hadn't been right in camp, that he'd been having, neck injuries and leg injuries. And to be honest with you, it felt like excuses. I was like, that's great. Like, that's just excuses, really. Like, I get there were reasons for why he lost, but it just sounded like he was making a load of excuses. And I think the mistake Ben Whittaker made was not trying to get back into the ring. I think even if, your ankle was broken or, I don't know, you've hurt your neck, you've got to at least show some sort of willingness to get back into the ring. It's a bit like the end of Rocky 1, isn't it? Like, they're both down. And I think it's Rocky 2, isn't it? Where they're both down, but then eventually Rocky comes back into the ring to win. I think you've got to show some sort of willingness to get back into the ring. And I was listening to Carl Froch's interview with Liam Cameron, and I mean, Liam Cameron, he seems like a pretty honest bloke. He doesn't have any real reason to lie, I don't feel. He was saying that, Ben Whittaker was really tired in there. He was exhausted from the end of round 2. That, Liam Cameron felt like he was going to finish him. And, he could be lying, but he doesn't really have a reason to lie, does he? And, I sort of looked in his eyes and, I did feel like he was being honest. And, yeah, I think stopping this showboating doesn't look great, because if you're showboating against journeymen, but then you don't do it against sort of high-level operators, it just does look a little bit disrespectful, doesn't it, to journeymen, that you're just showboating over them. When obviously journeymen are a very integral part to the sport of boxing, and any guy who gets in the ring deserves respect. So yeah, I think the one mistake Ben Whittaker made was not trying to get back into the ring. And yeah, I mean, from what Liam Cameron said, it did sound like Ben Whittaker sort of pulled him over the ring. And I mean, when you look at it back on replay, it didn't seem like there was like any sort of big injury. His leg just seemed to come down on the side of the canvas. His neck didn't look like he fell on his neck. So yeah, I don't think it's a great look for Ben Whittaker, and I don't think Ben Shalom's press conference was particularly helpful. To me, it just felt like it was just full of excuses. I sort of hate it when they come out saying, "Oh yeah, I had a really bad camp." Like, end of the day, you chose to get in that ring. Like, if you chose to make that fight and then you got in the ring, it doesn't really matter what you did before. Everyone has bad days. It's not just you. I'm sure Liam Cameron had some issues in his camp as well. But end of the day, you both got in the ring. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say Ben Whittaker quit. I think you give him the benefit of the doubt, because no one knows apart from him just how bad those injuries were. But as I said, I would have liked him to show some sort of willingness to get back into the ring, because there's just that picture of him like lying down on the floor looking completely hopeless and defeated. And even though it was a draw and some people thought Whittaker was up on the cards, you get the sense that he was sort of defeated in that moment. And Liam Cameron's come out of the fight with the highest stock. So yeah, as I said, I don't want to say Ben Whittaker quit, because only he'll really know that. He'll have to look himself in the mirror every morning and ask himself those questions. Did I quit? Did I have more? But yeah, that's my thoughts now. I thought that he should have at least tried to get back into the ring. Like Liam Cameron did. No one really talks about that. Liam Cameron, he fell over the ropes as well, and he managed to get back in the ring. So yeah, credit to Liam Cameron. It's nice to see he got the deal with Creamsby, so he got some sort of reward out of the situation. And Liam Cameron seems like a very honest bloke, humble. He's been through a lot of suffering in his life. I think he lost his stepdaughter. He's struggled with drugs, alcohol. And I think, when you've been through that sort of suffering, that hardship, it does toughen you up as a person, And I think Liam Cameron, he'd suffered before. He'd been to those dark waters, those dark places, and he wasn't, going to go out easy. He was, going down with a fight. And as I said, the momentum was definitely turning in that fight towards Liam Cameron. It might have everything flowed back, but, Liam Cameron said Ben Whittaker was exhausted. He was pretty confident he was going to get him out of there. So, all in all, I think Ben Whittaker needs to rematch Liam Cameron to get some respect back on his name. I think it's the only way forward he could possibly go. I wasn't sure if Ben Whittaker was in the right mental state going into the fight, because I remember the last YouTube video he uploaded, it was just him wandering around all these Louis Vuitton, Gucci, all these, designer clothes places, buying a load of clothes. It's like, why are you doing that before a fight? as much as you need to be confident, arrogant, arguably a bit delusional to get in the ring, all good things, I think you need to be humble as well. You need to be like, okay, you know, I'm going into a fight. This guy could knock me out. So I just don't think going around buying loads of designer clothes before a fight is a good idea. You have to stay humble. And it's always a bad omen, I feel, when you see people wearing like chains, designer stuff before a fight. It was the exact same thing with Jared Anderson. You know, he was walking around like he was Anthony Joshua, loads of chains on at the press conference, but it's like, you aren't that guy yet. You have to remain humble. You have to realize you're going in there with a guy that can beat your head in. I mean, a lot of fighters struggle with it. I remember Conor Ben, you know, he nearly had an upset early in his career. He was knocked down twice in the early rounds of a fight with a journeyman. He eventually, I think he dropped him in the last round to win it on points, and then he rematched him again and beat him soundly. But a lot of fighters do have a sort of wake-up call early on in their career, and I think this is Ben Whittaker's wake-up call. I think he's talented. I think he's a good boxer, but I think he just needs to stay a little bit more humble. He needs to... Look, I get you have to be confident, a bit arrogant, but you've got to go into there thinking, look, this is a fight. This guy is coming to take my head off, and you have to train hard. You have to be prepared for that. You know, I don't know if wearing the chains, wearing the designer clothes is helping you get into that mindset. I think it's strange that we've had nothing from Ben Whittaker either. A lot of times if fighters were injured or the fight gets cut off, they're like, oh, I wanted to get back in there. He shouldn't have stopped the fight. You look at someone like David Haye, you know, even though his fight against Klitschko was a little bit embarrassing for him, you know, blaming it on the little toe, at least he fought the whole fight and didn't quit. Same with fights against Tony Bellew. He was clearly injured during those fights, but he still, you know, fought as long as he could. So yeah, I think Ben Whittaker was mentally defeated. You know, he didn't try and get back up, didn't try and get back in the ring. But as I said, hopefully he can get that rematch with Leon Cameron and right the wrongs. So, what else has been happening in boxing this week? Well, there's been some movement in the heavyweight division. Obviously, one of the big talking points is where next for Fabio Wardley. He sort of needs like a step up between, you know, guys who have lost to world level. I feel like you want a stepping stone in between it. So for me, I've heard rumours of him fighting Jared Anderson. I think that's a great fight. I think both fighters should want it. Like, Jared Anderson's just lost to Bacoli, who's one of the, you know, danger men of the division. Surely he'll want that fight with Fabio Wardley. I mean, I know there's been some questions around his mindset. You know, is he truly a fighter? He had that weird interview with Roy Jones Jr. where he started crying. But I think Fabio Wardley Anderson makes a lot of sense. Hrgovic might be a step too far. FA Jag, but I don't mind at all. Dillian White, I don't mind that either. Otto Wallin. Yeah, I think for me, Otto Wallin or Jared Anderson. I think I prefer that Jared Anderson fight. I feel like that's a little bit more 50-50. I feel like Wardley's power would just be too much for Wallin. He doesn't do well against power punches, as we saw against Anthony Joshua. Yeah, and the only other news this week was there's rumours that Derek Chisora is going to be fighting Jarrell Miller. I actually don't like this fight at all. As much as Derek Chisora did well in beating Joe Joyce, he was absolutely, like, gone at the end of that fight. He was finished, you know. He had absolutely nothing left in the tank, you know, against a slightly over the hill at Joe Joyce. And you want to go in there with someone like, you know, Jarrell Miller, who, I mean, he might knock him down, but Danny Dubois didn't knock him down. I don't think you're going to knock him down. I don't think you're going to get him out of there. He'll come forward and he'll put it on you. I actually think Jarrell Miller's a better fighter than people give him credit for. He's just beating Andy Ruiz. He took Daniel Dubois the distance. He was undefeated before that. I think people just dislike him because he's a drug seat, which is fair enough. But I think in terms of boxing ability, he's actually better than people give him credit for. So I think Derek Chisora, Jarrell Miller. I think Jarrell Miller's all wrong for Derek Chisora. You know, and I definitely have concerns going into that fight for him. You know, he needs a easier fight. Someone who's a bit over the hill. Joe Joyce was kind of the perfect guy. Dillian White, wouldn't mind seeing that again. That'll have a lot of rivalry as well. Two English people. Otto Wallin, I would be okay with that fight. But yeah, all in all, I think Jarrell Miller is all wrong for Derek Chisora, and the fight definitely concerns me. I think he should just pack it in. Like, I know he's not going to, but you think you've had 48 fights, everyone loves you, you made a lot of money for someone who's never been a world champion. Walk away with your head held high before you take any more damage. But yeah, no one's going to change his mind. So yeah, leave me your thoughts in the comments down below. Should Ben Whittaker rematch Cameron next? What next for Fabio Wardley and Derek Chisora? Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. It means a lot. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.